how much longer are they going to be able to do that? Some interesting takes from all over the state and all over the area. Which schools still want to do this? Why are they getting rid of them? Mike McGarry, longtime Press of Atlantic City high school sports writer. He's going to join us now. He has had some opinions about whether or not these games should stick where they are. So we'll get into that, the state playoffs, and much more with Mike here on the Sports Bash on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Michael, what's up, man?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me on. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
You too. So obviously, it seems like in the last 5 years, some schools and rivalries have started to go by the wayside. Some decided to start moving to Wednesday nights. Some decided to stop playing altogether. And now we're getting to the point where how much longer do you think there will be games on Thanksgiving, if at all? Do you think the schools will get to kind of pick themselves? Like, are there certain schools that don't want to give them up? Or is it getting to the point where these schools now see this as a nuisance?
Yeah, I think I think the NJSAA, the state, will never force a high school to give up its Thanksgiving game. I don't think they're going to march into some of the legendary Thanksgiving games in the state of New Jersey, i.e. Millville and Vineland, for instance, Atlantic City, Holy Spirit, and tell those schools, hey, you can't play on Thanksgiving. But the way the football schedule is set up now, the structure of the season, the addition of the regional championship games, and the addition of what everybody wants to see is a true state championship game in the public school enrollment groups, really makes the Thanksgiving games, they just don't fit it in the schedule. So I think we're going to start to see less and less and less games each year. And again, I don't think the state's ever going to come in and say, hey, Millville and Byron, you can't play on Thanksgiving. But I do think these games are going to start to disappear, and they are everywhere around the state, except really in South Jersey.
Right. Now, it seems that some of the schools, like tonight there are games, Oakcrest and Absegami. What is the reason that they have decided to move off of Thanksgiving and play the night before? And is that something that they would like to continue to do?
Well, I think the fact if you're playing on Wednesday night, there's really no difference to playing on Thursday. It's that sort of time frame that's the big issue. So I think some schools shifted to Wednesday night to sort of set their game apart. There are only one of a couple of games being played, so maybe you draw some extra fans. Maybe you get to sleep in on Thanksgiving morning, that sort of thing. The real problem is now with the way the season ends, the regular season ends that first week in November. And then they have things called consolation games or regional crossover games, or you play a playoff game. If you don't qualify for the playoffs and you play a regional consolation game, or if you lose in the first round of the playoffs, you just simply it's just too hard on teams. For instance, Atlantic City is going to be off for 27 days before they play Holy Spirit tomorrow. Oakcrest plays Absegami tonight. Oakcrest would have been off for 20 days. That gap, that 2 to 3 week gap of trying to hold a team together, practice kids with the game far off in the distance, it's just too much for some schools, and it's just an inconvenience that just doesn't fit in well with the structure of high school football the way it is today.
Now, that wasn't a case in the past, though. Why? Because they moved the season up. Why have they chose to move the season up so much so that I get it, Thanksgiving is – this problem is occurring this year, though, because Thanksgiving is later, correct? Yeah. I mean, if the Thanksgiving was last week, like typical, those teams would have only been off for 2 weeks, and if they had a consolation game or something, the gap gets smaller, correct?
Right, that is correct. But you're still talking about a 2 to 3 week gap rather than a 3 to 4 week gap than what they've had. The reason it occurs is simple. They've since they've added the regional championship games, which basically pits the South Jersey winner against the Central Jersey winner and the North 1 against the North 2 winner. They've started the season earlier. They're ending it earlier. So that's the gap. There's a bigger gap between the end of the regular season and the playoff and Thanksgiving. And the other factor is it's a playoff world today in high school football. Teams want to make the playoffs. Their goals are to make the playoffs. And for instance, Mainland and EHT, they're playing for the last time on Thanksgiving tomorrow. If you play some of these Thanksgiving games during the regular season, it's so much more beneficial to your team as far as making the playoffs. I mean, Mainland with a win over Egg Harbor Township, if they play that game in the regular season, that's a big boost for Mainland. That could almost put Mainland in the playoffs by itself. Example, Millville and Vineland. If Millville and Vineland move their game from Thanksgiving to earlier in the season, the winner of that Millville-Vineland game would almost be assured of a playoff spot. So to play these games after the playoffs begin and have them not really count for anything towards the playoff team, you're really almost hurting yourself as far as, qualifying for the playoffs and getting home playoff games.
Now, of the matchups that are still going, Ocean City, Pleasantville, we know Mainland EHT is ending, Millville, Vineland, Lower Middle, Holy Spirit AC. Do you see any of those schools that want to get out of that game, that just don't want to play them anymore, or do you think that the ones that are still playing still are wanting to play those games?
Yeah, I think the ones that are still there, that are still playing, like Millville, Vineland, Atlantic City, Holy Spirit, I think they are, that's part of the school's DNA. What Millville, Vineland's been played for 100 years. Atlantic City, Holy Spirit is Atlantic County's oldest rivalry. The rest, I can see sort of maybe some discussion. Ocean City and Pleasantville, they didn't play for a while. Middle and Lower Cape May, they didn't play for a while. Absegami and Oakcrest, that's a traditional inter-district rivalry, but, that they've already shifted to a Wednesday night. That game could be shifted to earlier in the season. And what a lot of schools around the state have done is that they shifted these games to the season opener, and you can kind of use them as a celebration to start the school year, have a pep rally, begin the school year, get the school year off on a high note. Or there's talk of having a rivalry week during the season where all these games will be played, and you'd have maybe the kind of atmosphere that you had this year when Mainland played Ocean City the final week of the regular season, two big rivals getting together, playoffs on the line, division titles on the line. You'd have all that other good stuff added in. So those are two possible solutions for moving these games.
Yeah, Mike, it's if you ask anyone or talk to anyone that is a Holy Spirit or Atlantic City alumni, just hearing you talk about moving the games to earlier in the season or just eliminating them altogether, we're all scratching our heads because I think it's ingrained in the Holy Spirit Atlantic City matchup, at least. I'll just speak to that. That game is viewed as more important than a playoff game. I mean, the late, great, Coach Bill Walsh, may he rest in peace, he would go around saying that Thanksgiving Day game is more important than winning a playoff game for Spirit. When he was the head coach there, that was the focus. You have to beat Atlantic City. Yeah, and the playoff games were second.
I think the problem, though, Mike, and you obviously probably would have some insight. This is just my opinion. I grew up on the island playing football. And back then, you had two choices. Are you going to go to Holy Spirit or are you going to go to AC?
Yep.
When I played for the Ventnor Pirates, every game I played, when the year were done that game, someone would walk up and say, are you going to AC or are you going to Spirit? That doesn't exist anymore. The kids on the island, they're finding every way possible not to play for Atlantic City. That football program is Mike, they're in trouble over there. If ACIT gets a team, they're in big trouble. The AC part of that rivalry is part of the problem, is that question to the Ventnor Pirate kid doesn't exist anymore. Are you going to AC or Spirit? Because the answer isn't even – there is no answer. That's not even a question. I'm going to Ocean City, Mainland, Cedar Creek, anywhere but AC. And I think that's what's really affected that rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, I think first a couple of things. So AC's through a down period right now. They've had down periods before, and they've come back. And it wasn't just 2 years ago that I believe they beat Holy Spirit on Thanksgiving.
Yes,
but
they
I think
did.
What Ryan mentioned there is a perfect thing. I think these Thanksgiving games mean more to the alumni than they do to the current players and coaches. And I think if you're going to do what's best for the current players and coaches that are playing in 2019 – and I get the attraction of the games. Come back.
Well, a lot of that, Mike, though, a lot of that, Mike, is because back in the – I'm 42. There would be people who parents went to Spirit and their kid went to AC or vice versa. That's not happening anymore. This group of parents didn't go to AC and their kid goes to Spirit. That's out the window. Very few times now is it, well, I went to AC and my kid goes to – that's kind of gone. That generation is kind of past.
Right, and that's my argument. I'm not ever saying I think AC and Holy Spirit should play every year. I think if AC and Holy Spirit played the first weekend of the season, you'd have just as big a crowd as you'll have out there tomorrow morning. And I think it would be a better game, and I think there would be more intensity of the game, and it would mean more to both teams. I think you're exactly right, though. In today's world, there was a time when people said those Thanksgiving games meant more. But go ask the Holy Spirit people. They've got a choice. And they got to make this choice. Beat Atlantic City tomorrow or beat St. Joe a week from this Saturday to win a state title. Which game do you think they're choosing to win? I'm going to say 100% of them are saying we want to win the state title against St. Joe next weekend. And that's it in a nutshell right there. That's why.
Well, most of those kids would say they don't want to play at Rutgers, though.
Well,
he had to get his jab in.
There, you know.
So I think the AC Spirit one is interesting. And I think, like A.J. Russo, who's the coach, he's an alum, so that game is important to someone like him. I just don't know that the kids I would say more on the AC side don't understand it as much. I mean, just because I think a lot of the Island kids don't go to AC High anymore. And I think that rivalry was kind of different because of the amount of the Island kids that went to AC.
Yeah, you're playing against your friends.
Right.
It's a different type
You
of –
played together on the Pirates, and half of them went to Spirit. The other half went to AC. You really don't see that as much anymore. The other one, like Ocean City, Pleasantville, you said it hasn't played for a while. Now, both those teams are good now. But there was a time where Pleasantville was really bad and Ocean City was really good, and then they kind of flipped a little bit. But a lot of people don't even understand why those two teams even were matched up. Like, it seemed, it was such an antiquated reason as to, well, Ocean City was the next closest one to Pleasantville, so they just put them together. And then the AC, like, you can make an argument that Mainland EHT, they're not even each other's biggest rivals. Like, Mainland kind of views those. So I could see those ones not making the grade a little bit. But the Millville-Vineland one, I guess, and even Oakcrest-Apsagami, that one never really caught on, quite frankly, because neither program is at a level that drew a lot of attention to it.
Right. I think what you hit on things right there. And my argument is that times changed. I mean, when I was a kid, there were 4 bowl games on New Year's Day. Orange, Sugar, Cotton, and Rose. And a mythical national champion in college football arose from those games. When I was a kid, Oklahoma, Nebraska was the biggest rivalry in the country. Now they don't even play. I mean, times
and you walk
changed.
to school in the snow.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah, exactly. You look at Holy Spirit. I mean, Holy Spirit's probably bigger rivals with St. Augustine and St. Joe than Atlantic City. It's just the way it is. Atlantic City has a bigger rivalry with some other teams. So, I mean, I get it. The historic ones, the ones that are going to be around maybe forever, who knows, are your Millville-Vineland, the Phillipsburg Easton game up north. But the rest of them, like you said, are just kind of marriages of conveniences. 25 years ago, Mainland and EHT, Apsagami opened. Oakcrest wanted to play Apsagami. Mainland needed a rivalry. Okay, we'll play EHT. But everybody knows Mainland's biggest rival is Ocean City. So, I mean, there's a romanticism about these games that doesn't exactly meet, the reality on the ground, basically.
Yeah, and it looks, as you mentioned, with all of the playoff things kind of coming into focus now, these kind of matchups become almost inconvenient. Like if Pleasantville would have won or Ocean City would have won, they were going to cancel their game, correct? They were not going to play the game had one of those teams won.
Right, correct. And what you have now is, if you lose early in the playoffs or you don't make the playoffs, there's a gap before you play on Thanksgiving. If you make the playoffs and you go on a championship run, you have teams now that are playing a Thanksgiving game that in a week, like Holy Spirit, they have a Thanksgiving game. A week later, they play for a state title. Shawnee, they're playing Hamilton for a regional championship game. Shawnee will play Lenape on Thanksgiving. It's almost like that puts those teams in a bind. How do we approach the Thanksgiving game? We're in the middle of a playoff run. We're playing for a championship in 10 days. How do I play this game? Do I play my starters? Do I play JV? Do I rest my starters? That's where I say it doesn't fit in the schedule. And the other thing I'd say is the football season is different now than it was when these games first started. These teams today, they'll start lifting weights on Monday. Then they'll lift weights till June. Then once June comes, they'll hold camp. Then they'll participate in 7-on-7. Then training camp starts, August 10th. the season is so long. What's wrong with a team season ending in early November if you don't go on a big championship run, and we give the kids 2 to 3 weeks off for their bodies to heal before the winter sports season starts this week? I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I've called a game on Thanksgiving virtually every year since I've been back from college. I enjoy it. I like the kind of routine of going to the game and then going to the family. I feel like that's there, but I don't know that people would just be crushed by the fact that they're gone. So I'm kind of like stuck in the middle there. But where are you going tomorrow? Which of these Thanksgiving Day games will get the presence of Mike McGarry?
I will be out at EHT for Mainland at EHT. Mainland a chance to clinch a West Jersey Football League division title with a victory, and EHT with a chance to get their first winning season, I believe, since 2010 or 2009. So interesting game out there at EHT tomorrow, and I'll be out there for that one.
Yeah, and Millville, Violent, both teams 5-5, so that one will be for a winning record. Ocean City, Pleasantville, both teams have 8 wins. So that one is a very intriguing game as well. Middle, lower, always. I mean, for those two who don't have a lot of playoff aspirations or history, playing this game on Thanksgiving is kind of a huge deal for them, right? I mean, that Anchor Bowl's everything down there.
Yeah, I mean, the Anchor Bowl is big bragging rights below exit 10 on the Garden State Parkway. So those two teams will meet tomorrow, and that's always a tremendous game. And, the Pleasantville Ocean City game, that's one Thanksgiving game, at least for this year, I'm in favor of them playing. I think it's great that the Pleasantville football team just gets to go out tomorrow and play a normal football game, get to be together as teammates, enjoy themselves for one last day, especially the seniors, and just be able to end their career on a quote-unquote, just a normal football game. I think that's just great for them. So, although I'm against Thanksgiving games in general, I'm in favor of Pleasantville Ocean City tomorrow.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City giving us a little background on these games. And we'll see a couple of years from now if we're still having this conversation or if they're all gone. And, Mike, happy Thanksgiving to you. And I guess, I don't know, Pete Thompson's laid up in surgery. I don't know if you'll be on the Pete Thompson show this week. He's in emergency surgery, but he tells me the show will go on. So we will hear you 8:30 Saturday morning, if so, Mike.
All right, my pleasure. Best to Pete. We'll see if he can get off the DL, I guess, or the injured list back on there Saturday morning.
All right, pal. Take care.
All right, see you guys later. Thanks for having me.